Join me on this 7 miles kayak from Lawrenny Quay to Carew Castle and back on the Carew River on the 11th of November 2024. Watch on to see the amazing scenery along the Carew River, which is one of the main tributaries of the Cleddau River in Pembrokeshire. Discover the history of the medieval Carew Castle and Tidal mill and learn about the flocks of wildfowl which inhabit the estuary. This 7 miles kayak on the Carew River in Pembrokeshire took me from Lawrenny Quay up to Carew Castle and back. I launched at 12 p.m. from Lawrenny Quay and paddled upstream the Carew River with the incoming tide. After exploring Radford Pill, I paddled up to Carew Castle and Tidal Mill. The return journey downstream with the outgoing tide took me back to Black Mixon Pool before I landed back at Lawrenny Quay at 4 p.m. I've just been to the office at Lawrenny Yacht Station over there to ask for permission to launch off their slipway. I've parked up on the side of the road just past Lawrenny Yacht Station. It's about 100 metres to the slipway. I inflated my kayak and got my gear set up on the slipway at Lawrenny Yacht Station. My kayak's inflated at the end of the slipway. On the left you've got the pontoon at the Lawrenny Arms pub. It was a case of slipway by name and slipway by nature, as I tried not to slip over on the seaweed on the edge of the ramp. I launched just after 12 noon, as usual slightly behind schedule. I passed the pontoon of the Lawrenny Arms on the left hand side as the slipway slid away behind me as I paddled upstream. Lawrenny developed their own fishing, boat building and as a staging point for quarry limestone extracted from quarries upriver. The parish church of St Caradog in Lawrenny village was founded in the 12th century. There's a big flock of Canada geese over there, honking away. There's another flock of Canada geese over there, giving me a bit of a wide berth. I paddled past Black Mixon Pool at the junction between the Carew and Cresselly rivers, which was shown on historic charts of the Cleddau as an anchorage for vessels waiting to enter the rivers. Unfortunately, I'd left my kayak anchor at home and therefore wasn't able to drop it to moor up at Black Mixon Pool for a rest. The Cleddau River and its tributaries offer countless opportunities for paddling trips. It's an amazing river system consisting of the Daugleddau, the Western Cleddau, the Eastern Cleddau, the Carew, the Cresselly and the Pembroke rivers, together with other smaller pills and tributaries. We've paddled all of the Cleddau and its tributaries and are uploading videos of our trips on them to the Cleddau River playlist of our YouTube channel. We are also uploading blog posts of our trips on the Cleddau and its tributaries to our Cleddau River page of our website, which is linked below. This footage from a higher elevation shows Black Mixon Pool with the Cresselly River joining from the left and the Carew River continuing off to the right. On this trip I was using a Story Division 1 inflatable kayak. This is a full drop stitch inflatable kayak which inflates to 10 psi with the result that the hull and decks are very firm and rugged. We generally use inflatables because of the amazing portability that they offer. While not as stable as our other kayaks, we have found the Story kayak to be one of the fastest we have, and it tracks well due to the V-shaped hull and the hard plastic bow and stern ribs. We've done a full review of the Story Division 1 kayak on our product review playlist, which is linked below. That's just one of the many flocks of ducks that I've seen whizzing about the estuary. Regarding logistics, since this was a circular kayak, it was relatively straightforward. At Lawrenny Quay, there are two options for launching and landing. One is to park and launch at the pontoon of the Lawrenny Arms pub, which we've done on previous occasions. The pontoon is for use by patrons of the pub, but they are okay with kayakers using it, as long as you have a drink and maybe some food either before or after the kayak. The Lawrenny Arms is a great waterside pub, and we had some awesome food there before a previous trip on the Cleddau, when we were waiting for the tide to come in enough to launch from the pontoon. Alternatively, as on the date of this trip, you could launch from the slipway at the adjacent Lawrenny Yacht Station. If you want to launch at the yacht station, then call at the office to give them your details before you launch. They ask for a small donation to the RNLI, which after all is the most worthy of causes. You can then park on the side of the road just past the yacht station. I turned off into Radford Pill, which joins the Carew River downstream from Carew Castle. At the time, the sludgy streaks on the water were slightly worrying, but when I subsequently showed the footage to some friends who work in the environmental field, they said that it was algal bloom, which apparently is quite common on estuaries. At the top of Radford Pill is the village of Milton. In the 1300s, Milton was apparently governed by the Malafant family, under barons of the Earl of Pembroke, who also built a small stone castle nearby downstream at Upton on the south bank of the Carew River. That's the end of Radford Pill over there, and you've got the village of Milton in the background. I paddled back down Radford Pill and rejoined the Carew River, before continuing upstream towards Carew Castle. I was a bit behind schedule, mainly due to doing too much filming and photography, but I still hope to get to Carew Castle at just before high tide, which was just after 2 p.m. Carew Castle loomed into view as I rounded the final bend. The Norman castle at Carew has its origins in a stone keep built by Gerald de Windsor around the year 1100. The original outer walls were timber and only the keep was of stone. This still exists in the later structure as the Old Tower. Much of what remains of Carew Castle today was the work of Sir Nicholas de Carew, who died in 1311 and who was responsible in particular for the east and west ranges. The castle and the accompanying tidal mill certainly offer an amazing spectacle as you kayak up the river towards them. In the late 15th century, Carew Castle was greatly improved and extended by a very colourful character, Sir Rhys ap Thomas. You can paddle up as far as the causeway which separates the estuary from the larger mill pond below the castle. You get a great view of Carew Castle from the river with the tidal mill on the right hand side. I paddled over to the bank just below the tidal mill on the right for the traditional beer and lunch stop before the return leg back downstream. Behind the castle you can see the quaint village of Carew, where there's a lovely old pub called the Carew Arms. During the Civil War the castle changed hands between the parliamentarians and royalists 4 times, including once after a fierce assault. If you were fitter than me, which isn't difficult, and wanted to do a longer route than this 7-mile circular trip, then you could launch at Pembroke dock and come up the Cleddau River and then turn into the Carew River, but that would be about a 12 to 13 miles round trip depending on where you launched at Pembroke dock. Carew Tidal Mill is a corn mill built around 1801, although a much older mill which may have been built at the same time as the castle used to occupy the site. The Carew River is essentially a tidal estuary. You should plan to do the upstream leg of this round trip with the incoming tide and the downstream leg with the outgoing tide. We've done a guide to estuary kayaking video on our kayaking guides playlist in which we cover all of the tips that we've picked up over many years of paddling many different estuaries. We normally use tidetimes.org to check tide times and heights in advance. It depends how fast you paddle, but ideally you want to launch at Lawrenny Quay between 2 to 3 hours before high tide if you were planning on doing this trip to give you ample time to paddle the upstream leg to Carew with the incoming tide. I used the tide times for Black Tar since this is the nearest location on the tidetimes.org website to the Carew River. On the day of this trip, the high tide at Black Tar was about 6 metres, which seems to have been about halfway up the tidal range for that location. I would suggest paddling this route when there is a reasonably high tide in the upper half of the range for the high tides on the Cleddau, since this will help to ensure that there is enough water in the river to comfortably reach up as far as Carew Castle. As with many of the tributaries of the Cleddau, the Carew is very tidal and it's not suitable to be paddled 2 hours or so either side of low tide, since much of it then becomes mud flats with only a very narrow channel of water to paddle in. By way of illustration, this first photo shows the view of the Carew River towards low tide, and the second photo shows virtually the same view towards high tide. As I paddle back through Black Mixon Pool again, Lawrenny Quay loomed into view downstream. Passing the entrance to the Cresselly River off to the right reminded me of a great paddle I'd done previously from Lawrenny Quay to Cresselly Quay and back on the Cresselly River. I uploaded a video of that trip to our Cleddau River playlist. As you know, we navigate by pubs and there's a great pub at Cresselly Quay called the Cresselly Arms where you can have a drink before paddling back to Lawrenny Quay. The Cleddau and its tributaries have a long checkered history. The Norse raided in the 9th and 10th centuries and some may have settled since there are scattered Scandinavian place names in the area, mostly north and west of the Cleddau River. The Normans established strongholds in South Pembrokeshire as early as 1093 and over the next 200 years developed castles and fortified towns and villages throughout the region to the extent that it became known as Little England beyond Wales. Large numbers of Flemings settled in the area, probably having come over from their homeland in northern Belgium due to large-scale flooding there. I have some ancestry from South Pembrokeshire on my father's side, and I wonder if a possible Flemish connection could be the reason why I have such a taste for Belgian beer. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please consider subscribing by clicking on the left below. Click on the right below to see videos of our other trips along the Cleddau River and its tributaries. Happy paddling from the kayak crew.